And when companies wanting to come into partnership within the framework of sustainable development goals, we have to see some switching of mindset within the companies. Thomas said earlier on about responsible businesses, about inclusive business practices. What is that? You know, by doing well, by doing good, and things like that. People might think, do you want businesses to turn into an angel? Or they want to change their business model to become a social welfare organization? And the answer is not. Businesses are businesses. And what you do is creating wealth, creating prosperity, not just making profit. So businesses would have to shift. And this is actually an evolution that is taking shape now from some years ago, you know, when companies look at profit in the personal and companies level. They look at profit motives, just making money. But nowadays, that kind of mindset is and have to change to look at commitments for mutual prosperity, as I said before. The name CSR, corporate social responsibility, used to be, and maybe some of us still practice that, to do it merely for the benefits of companies, promotions, companies marketing, you know, reputation branding, and things like that. Nowadays, we need to change that paradigm to look at social responsibility for the whole community development, not just the company, but all the stakeholders involved. Yes, your shareholders are very important. Without them, you cannot have the companies running, but stakeholders are also equally important. And they are your employees, your people around your communities, anything that makes your businesses run. Because without your customer, without your clients, the business may not exist. So when we start thinking about inclusivity like that, so every single way you actually produce your revenue, that would come about consideration, serious consideration about how actually I'm making this money. Am I paying my tax? Yes, it is a must, you know, but am I caring for my employees? Am I caring that, am I caring for the environment, for the waste that I'm throwing to the river, for example? Also, we are familiar with the donation of money and products for the community, you know, especially in the disaster situation like now, you know, and even during the tsunami, for example, when huge of flow of products and funding are pouring into the society by companies. But what was rather funny for me at the time was that, why you have to put up your backdrop when you give money to somebody? And that's okay because you want to be recognized as a company, but more importantly, it's not your sort of like single or just your focus of intention of doing things to the community. But if we change the thoughts towards social investment, by doing things for the community, we actually invest. And like any investment, it may not come very direct. It would come in the time where you don't realize that what you invested in the community would come to fruition, because they will protect you. The community will know and acknowledge the business who are nice and good for them, to them. And also, the evolution of the roles of business and development process is also shift between just social support to individuals, like what I said before, donation to the poor, to the family and so forth, to become more strategic, empowerment to specific sector, like for example, looking at small enterprises, looking at how your suppliers would be able to survive during this pandemic situation is one good example. But companies or businesses must do it strategically. And for doing that strategically, it's going to be difficult if we do it ourselves. So the partnership is an answer for that. The next one I would like to share with you is a few examples of partnerships for development agenda, which actually involve business. One of them that has been running for a few years now is an alliance built by several organizations in the ASEAN member countries with the goal at that time to convene businesses to say no to corruption, and regardless where they are in the ASEAN, of course, by saying that, yeah, we want to do business in a clean manner, in an ethical manner. You know, there is no such bribe or gratification or anything. But because companies are basically wanting to do that because it's a high economic practices, right? It's a high economic implication when you spend your money for briberies to be able to win jobs or, you know, dealing with the governments or whatever. The fact is that companies cannot do it yourself. And companies are so afraid to just stand up alone by saying, no, I don't want to give you money for kickback, for example. So with that understanding, with our observation on that, the ASEAN CSR network actually facilitates such needs. And that is the true partnership, because several organizations in this region came together in 2014, if I can remember correctly. And Thomas has been very instrumental in this initiative. You can talk and discuss with him later on. And we bring in the stakeholders of each country to actually talk about campaigns to say that integrity is basically has no borders. So there's no border of countries, there's no border of whether it's businesses, government or civil society. We are all prone to this problem. So partnership is an answer to this kind of initiative. Now, because I'm from Indonesia, so please excuse me if I just want to show you, and I'm sure this is happening as well in Singapore or in other countries, but SDGs in Indonesia have been implemented as a co-creation and collaboration between all development partners. And for that, the government has established 4 platforms that work together in parallel. They are the government and parliament platform, the philanthropy and business platform, the civil society and media platform, and the experts and academia. I just want to give you a particular attention to the philanthropy and business. Why philanthropy comes together with business? Because companies often have what they call it corporate foundations. A friend of mine in the board of trustees of ASEAN CSR Networks actually lead an organization in the Philippines called the League of Corporate Foundations. And we see that companies, large companies, usually they run their own foundation. So that's why we put together with organizations that work on philanthropy activities. And they have specific agenda to work together with other partners in terms of advocacy within business sector, you know, because CEOs will talk to the other CEOs and they have kind of peers pressure and encouragement among others. We cannot get anybody else from other sectors telling the business what to do. So what we do is provide working on advocacy for the business society itself. The platform also facilitates programs that would require collaboration with other platforms or government or sectors. We work on the communications or how the companies have been doing. And this is important that the companies need also acknowledgement about what they are doing well. Capacity building, of course, is important because not all companies are in the same pace and not in the same expertise level. So it is important to actually share knowledge and skills as a continuous learning curve. And last but not least is looking at how we collaborate in terms of fundraising, because none of the company, no matter how big the company is, would be able to solve the problem in the world. I have a real example of that for a company, a huge company in Indonesia, which used to be very proud of working on their own for the community. They start now thinking about, oh my God, you know, I should have partnered with others so that people to just look at me and ask me for money anytime they need things. And the others should be able to help as well. And in Indonesia, there are several organizations, and this is just few among others, you know, including the Indonesian Global Compact Network, which is a partnership that addresses SDGs, Indonesia Business Links, where I say there's a business or business management board, and other organizations, where each of the organizations address various focus areas, depending on their constituents, depending on what are the hot issues they want to tackle in terms of making change. So when we talk about transformative partnership for a change, we always use the, what you call it, the thinking line of theory of change and how we make a change in the way we do our business. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're not tired by now, because I now come to a stage where hopefully this is exciting for you, because partnership is easy to say as it is. And in fact, we know partnership from a long time ago. Traditionally, in each of our countries, people work together with neighbors, you know, with whoever, and we call it partnership. But when it comes to a huge development agenda, partnership become very challenging. The challenges are basically, and this is something that people might not have thought before, you know, is that the challenges are usually rooted from the general preconception of stakeholders upon private sector businesses. Other sectors, and this is, it's not an arbitrary statement, but this is based on the voices of many stakeholders around the world about how people or other sectors perceive business sectors. And if you want to know what they say, businesses are profit-driven. Well, that's true. If you're not profit-driven, so why you become a business? But they always also see a behavior in the businesses, which is quick fix. They want something fast. They want to do something that results tomorrow. If it can be now, it will be better. And they also say that they are hard-nosed. They are self-centered. They're greedy. Don't get angry to me when I say this, because that's what people say around the world. And people also see businesses often inconsiderate. However, many of them also acknowledge the fact that businesses usually are very responsive, because they want to do things quick. They are very responsive, and they're also willing to take risks. And surely there are a lot of innovations that come about in the business sector. And we can see all the new startups and everything. The innovations always come from business sector. However, those challenges still come about in some real experiences, and many real experiences, real life experiences. And that are manifested usually and generally are manifested in the form of anxiety about difference. When they come together, they know different, they're very anxious, and they start thinking, you know, all this preconception comes about, you know, all the assumptions come about even before they actually know each other. And there is often power imbalance between partners, The big companies tend to think they are the bigger, and therefore they have to take power. And the smaller company, the SMEs, tend to put themselves in the smallest space or chair if they can. And because of that, the relationship become vertical, become hands on the top, hands at the bottom. So that is what I call it power imbalance. Worse actually, among partners, often there are hidden agenda. This hidden agenda is not unusual actually. Politics, even businesses, they don't usually talk to each other about what they have in mind, what their underlying interest. And that is driven of competitiveness nature. Not just businesses, but even civil society, NGOs, they are also very competitive each other. And if you look at that, the whole lot of anxiety of difference, power imbalance, hidden agenda, competitiveness, they actually resulted on problems related to trust, related to accountability. Because you have hidden agenda, you find it difficult to convince people and get them trust, because you don't open up, you know. And I know that's difficult to open up your business interests, but there is ways to do that. When we talk about competitiveness, people start thinking about what's in it for me. I have to have bigger than the others, you know, those kind of competitiveness, which become challenges if we talk in the partnership, you know, because partnership, again, as I said before, is talking about mutual benefits. And mutual benefit doesn't have to be 50-50, you know, but equality means that everybody get the benefits in different ways. Those challenges are lying down the overall thinking of, or fear, I would call it, fear of people doing partnership, is facing the uncertainty. If you can imagine, if you want to go to a jungle or something, and you don't know whether there are lions or maybe there are snakes or whatever, you know, those uncertainties of whether or not I can survive or whether or not I can actually partner, it would be haunting us if we are not aware of what to do and how to mitigate those problems beforehand. And because of that, learning the skills of how we do partnership or collaboration is actually very essential. This is all what I just said before, you see. Those characterization of the business that draw into challenges, that actually move into or manifested into challenges that we are facing. And to do that, we need to keep hold of values of respecting the diversity, applying equity in all matters, being open, creating mutual benefit, and last but not least, be courageous. Be courageous that we know that we are different. We know that it's okay to disagree, and it doesn't have to say that I have to have 50-50, like, you know, like in the commercial business. This is what my advice for friends in businesses, that for sustainable development in this current situation, for sustaining your business, you have to swing, to be able to swing between the spectrum of commercial mode and partnership mode. Yes, there are times where your relationship with your partner will be transactional. It's because it's easy to do it transactional, you know. There is a service delivery, you pay the cost, and or you subcontracting your work, rather than doing a partnership mode for the sake of partnership, you know. Partnership, again, is a complex system. So doing partnership in a true manner would require collaborative relationship where things are co-created, the accountability should be should be shared mutually, and the risks should be shared as well. You know, it is not about transferring your risk to your subcontractor because I have the CSR fund to spend for this year. You guys do it, you know, whatever, and then give me the result in such period of time. You know, that's not collaborative partnership, and that's not a transformative partnership, because the transformative partnership have the real, what you call it, not just spirit, but I think is an attitude of empowering your partners, because not all partners are the same and with the same expertise. So if our partners in the supply chain are not catching up with what we are doing, don't punish or you just stop, I don't want to pay your fees, but in fact you empower them, you educate them, you know, and we together work for the sake of achieving the goals that we are aiming. So that's what would be my advice for businesses when we work on sustainable development goals. So with all I have shared with you before this, what will be the next? What will be things you want to do? What we should do as business? You know, we should just swinging between these two things won't work. You know, if we don't practice, right? But to do that, in looking forward for that, we need to always think about a few things. That first, no matter what, whether it's about going through this difficult situation with this pandemic COVID-19 or any kind of other challenges, whatever we do must create change, because SDGs or the 17 goals actually talk about changes. And secondly, partnership always involve integration. Integration and synergy are the language, are the words that we use all the time, but those words should be implemented genuinely. It's not just being, let's integrate, but I run first and then you left behind, you know. No, SDGs are talking about nobody left behind. So partnership is about creating changes by working and integrate things that we can do so that it creates a bigger impact. But to do so, often we are challenged by the availability of data, right? This is where businesses are usually good at, is creating, looking for, developing accurate data. The accuracy of data would help us in terms of drawing the plan for working in the partnership with others. So we know exactly how much we can do, how long we can sustain, and then what will be the anticipated risk that we will see in the future when we work together. So if we have set that in mind of the three things, start to do collaborative program with others. There is nothing more important rather than to enact. You know, you can be inspired, you can be aware perhaps, and then inspired, and then you have the desire to do that. In the end, it's the action that matters. So by integrating all those SDGs goals and looking at where you can or we can focus based on our strength, then we start planning. So that's usually what I would say as my closure, you know, to what I'm sharing here, is that look forward, start thinking about changing, making changes, and then start thinking how we integrate the power and the expertise and the resources that we have, look at the data, start building the program, and do a proper planning. So with that, I end my sharing now, because I would like to spend more time talking or discussing with you, taking your questions, if I can answer your questions. And for that, I would say thank you very much for the opportunities to speak today.
Thank you very much, Yanti. Thank you very much, Yanti. This has been an amazing presentation. I learned so much. And thank you for spending this time and sharing with us. I would like to invite people to pose their questions online. Please write out your questions. And for the sake of giving everyone an opportunity to ask their questions and to get their questions answered, I'll only ask that you ask only one question, right? Okay, so everyone gets a chance to really speak and to ask what's in your heart. But to start off with, Yanti, there's one thing I want to really ask to get the ball rolling as well, is how does ARAIBA help to promote partnerships, the SDG 17? Maybe I can also get Thomas or Alan to maybe add to this quick dialogue just to see how we can actually add value to what you are doing.
Yeah. I think there is, I would say, a pattern on how partnership process started. And any partnerships always started with the issues that we want to focus on. Once we found the core issues we want to take up, whether that's human rights, whether that's labor, you know, in this current pandemic, labor's issues are very, very daunting, you see, in many countries, you know, there are a lot of laying off of people losing their jobs and things like that. You can focus on one thing, but that's not the only thing, right? Perhaps, you know, securing the business of SMEs may be one of the agenda. And then when we start knowing what the issues we want to take to the exercise about the data collection and things like that, you know, that's what ARAIBA can do to help, is identifying the options based on the data and bring together companies that share their concern about it. And usually when we have these issues, companies who come to you within the ARAIBA members would either say two things. There won't be three. Usually they will say, hi, this is very related to me. That's why I want to join, because I think I can do something about it. Or they say, oh no, this is not mine. But then if you say, if they say so, then you can ask again, what is matter to you? And that would actually give you another focus area or issue to work with. So ARAIBA is, I would say, an ideal platform, a safe haven platform where companies can work together. You can share the issue, you can share your headache, and then looking at the solution that we think of. And once we do that, start looking at what the companies can contribute, what they cannot. Don't push on companies to share things they cannot share. But when they can share, usually it won't be a cost for them, because it's their DNA, you know. If you ask to the banking companies, you know, and then you ask them to manage finance, they will say, oh, this is my bread and butter, you know, let's do it, you know, things like that. So I think ARAIBA would be a very important to play as what I call it, a partnership broker role. That's funny, right? There is a broker in development.
Yeah, I love it. I love the terminology. Partnership broker.
Well, me too. When I first learned about brokering, and I said, what is this? You know, this is not talking about property, you know, we are not talking about insurance. Why development works need a broker? And it's obvious. People would call you a facilitator, but that's not enough, because broker is not just facilitating. They're also mediating when people conflict, you know, you sometimes have to educate them, you know, you also set the journey. You know, like people, you're almost like a tour guide, basically. ARAIBA can be a tour guide, because you can let people know where to go and then where to go about, you know, what the rules, what the roadmap, you know, and then go with them, encourage them, make them work together. And so that was exactly broker is, right? So that's my answer. I hope you like it.
I love it. I love how you describe it. And you're quite right, because what we are doing is connecting business together and also listening to their concerns, because a lot of them have challenges. Then sometimes the SMEs, without a network to fall back on and to really discuss at a deeper level, sometimes they don't have the opportunity to explore solutions or to really hear about the experience of others. So, but thank you, Yanti, for this. Is a great answer. I'd like to maybe invite either Alan or Thomas to maybe add to it from from their point of view.
I'll just say that Yanti has given a great explanation. The partnership model that we had adopted in ASEAN CSR network was to be a network of networks. But there are also advantages in networks, because they have already got a whole list of partners within their networks. Is one group of partners dealing with another group of partners. But ARAIBA gives you another additional platform of individual companies working on issues together, and which is because different partners, some of our networks have their own priorities, their own privilege things, and here we can do. I think a simple example is that our peer-to-peer learning that we did last week and a meeting, we picked up things. And it also gives opportunities for our own members to initiate projects of their own.
Alan, would you like to add to the conversation?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks again, Yanti. That was very insightful, especially to see it from SDG perspective. I know as you were sharing, it brings to my mind because while I was with the Singapore government, I had to deal with many what they call the TAC, the trade association and chambers, and why we get so many, and sometimes for one common objective, for example, commerce and industry, you see we have so many, the Indian, the Malay, the international chambers, and sometimes also like, for example, I was dealing with the food industry, you have the Singapore Food Manufacturers Association, the SMF, many different types, the retail, the manufacturers. So while, we may say they're different, yet they're the same, And I think basically, as what you mentioned, it all boils down to perhaps the human character, and I tell you, when I deal with the TAC, there are so many politics that it gets along, people are not happy, with this guy, with that guy, and sometimes especially those with leadership caliber, when they're not happy, so what they do, they set up their own, right? So you end up with many different types, So I think it's a good reminder that the entity or the organization is just a unit, right? Where what makes the difference are really the drivers, right? The leaders behind it, the founders, the visionaries that will make the difference. So I think that's not wrong, to have many different setup, because I think what is key sometimes is to firstly, if you are the visionary, not to give up with your own dreams, right? To pursue, and it'll take time, for sometimes for the team dynamics to sift out, right? So that those who are like you, those who believes in your vision, will stay on with you. And I think that's key. And I agree. I like the part also where you share about the transition, right? To know that sometimes doing good requires more than just a commercial mindset. To make money is important, but there's a bigger goal, there's a bigger dream. And that's what we call, we talk about doing good. Thanks, Vincent. That's my little sharing.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Yanti, I've just been going through the group chat. There is a lot of affirmation. A lot of people really love what you share. Some unfortunately had to leave a little bit early for another meeting. But there are questions. There are questions that I'd like to go in order. But as said earlier, I want each person to have the opportunity to ask, to really compress the question, and so that everyone has a chance to ask. So I've got a Sunny. Sunny, he has got several questions. So Sunny, if you could sort of put it together in one question for Yanti, and can I invite you to put on your camera and ask your question directly to Yanti? Sunny?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, a very big thank you to ARAIBA, and more so, Ibu Yanti. It's my honor to have a chance to hear what you have been sharing just now. Like what Alan said, very insightful, but it also resonates with what I'm doing right now, which is actually a mission, getting the like-minded business people to come together on the ASEAN platform. So I have a question here. Vincent said try to actually several questions, but actually so I write in two. I will be very specific, relevant to the mission that I have launched recently. That is about 7 weeks ago. And we are talking about issues related to SDG, and SDG involve a partnership. And in transition to countries' boundaries, because we are working across ASEAN, how do we take the 5P into all our endeavors? And also, how we can, as a business, rally for government support, because like you say, government cannot do this SDG alone. You need the business people to come together. And so if we have this partnership where I have, for example, now I'm mounting a mission called the Manila COVID-19 mission. It involves, okay, the city governments of the Philippines, in the Metro Manila. It involves Singapore, it involves Malaysia. And of course, when I say involves Singapore, Malaysia means the businesses, NGOs, and the list can go on, all right? And our purpose is to mount a mission on partnership on humanitarian ground to help the urban poor, and more so because of the impact of the COVID-19 to the healthcare system of the cities and the countries, as well as the urban poor, who already, some of them already in the poor stage, but now is even more derailed because they have no income and so on. All right, they have gone hungry. And how such a kind of partnership where we have no reach to the city governments can help us to drive, let's say on ARAIBA platform. Can someone from ARAIBA help us to do that? And number two, you mentioned about fighting corruption. And I've been in the Philippines for the last 8 years. So I know quite a fair bit of the ins and outs dealing with the national government and the local government. And there is never ending route, towards that part. Of course, you say government, you talk about politics. I don't like politics, but I have to dabble with the politics just to facilitate, okay, I call in route, okay, into the ground zero. So how do you see ARAIBA can play a more active role? I hear from what Thomas' presentation at the beginning. We want to take action rather than just, okay, a framework, just advocacy, just voices, but there is no action. So how can we get this together? Within right now, I have more than 20 organizations.
Sunny, I've got to cut you in. I think you have asked a lot of questions. So if I were to get you to summarize, what is the one key question that you want to ask Yanti?
ARAIBA role, because we talk about action.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sunny. Yes, thanks, Sunny. I think I want to share these questions. You have a couple of questions actually. I want to share that with Thomas to actually add on what I would say. First, in terms of the mission that you are actually working right now in terms of helping people impacted by pandemic COVID-19. Certainly, you know that in each country there should be a similar like-minded groups that do the same thing like you. Now, the question, I think the challenge is to find them, right? Where they are, who they are, to do that. So for doing so, this is what I call it a cross-boundary partnership. if you are based in the Philippines, you need to actually look at the data and who are those organizations in other countries that would be relevant as your partners. So identifying the partners is crucial, because if you don't find the right partners, then you end up having more trouble rather than getting impact. So this is where actually ARAIBA would provide a bridge, like the song of bridge, what do you call it? The bridge under the troubled water?
Bridge over troubled water.
Bridge over troubled water.
Yeah, exactly. I like this song though, because in fact, that's how organization ARAIBA is in the best place, because they can see as a tower, that look at the big picture and look at the horizon more than any single company that join ARAIBA. So you are at the top of this tower, like the air traffic control, and seeing which one are working on what, and because of that, they can suggest to you, hi, Sunny, I can see in Indonesia, there is an organization called Indonesia Business Links that works on anti-corruption. And there is another one that works on this pandemic COVID-19. It's called the Philanthropy Indonesia. And this is real though. I mean, I know, and I'm part of the Philanthropy Indonesia as well. So through ARAIBA, ARAIBA can be a compass for you to look at who are to be connected. So with that, I actually would ask Thomas, do you want to add something on how ARAIBA to do it? But that's what I envision, as the chair of ASEAN, that ARAIBA is the bridging agent, between those countries and the players. Please, Thomas.
Thank you. I think Sunny has heard my story so many times that he'll be tired of it. So, I would just repeat. I think first and foremost, there are good ideas and there are good visions that you do. And I think if there are good visions, good ideas, we must say yes, go ahead doing it. I think that's a one. So Sunny's is one of those. I think it's a good idea, good intended, and do that. But at the same time, ARAIBA at the present moment, we have some resources constraint as well. So one of the things that we can only say, we can only endorse these ideas, we can endorse the missions, but we are not in a position to do what businesses call due diligence and check and say everybody in the team is perfect, everybody. And also, even if I have the resources, would I want to go and say, hey, this is the right guy or that's not the right guy? Because in addition to everything else, there's a thing called chemistry. You need a team that can work together and gel together and share those ideas together. And I think that's important. So, and the other point is our own network. I have conveyed his message of his ideas to a number of people. Some has connected up in their own, but more people has kept silent. They have got their own reasons. Maybe it's just their bandwidth can't take it, or they have got their own other things, or they could even be just reasons that the Philippine politics and issues like that, which incidentally Sunny knows much better than I do, because he has been part of it. I only know second, third hand from our own context, which Yanti, the LCF and the ABAC people who tell you. So one of the things that I've learned from my long life in the trade unions is, for anything, actually there's more than one version of any story. And I think the key thing is those prejudices, those barriers should not be a hindrance to getting the mission done. I think the mission is the most important thing. So I think what we have to do is get into this fine line of saying, yeah, good job, I endorse you, but also understand that how far can we go to endorse you? Because there's a lot of things we don't know and we cannot do that. And also, and I think we should not go too much, because then we will be interfering with the creative things. Because frankly, I must say that Sunny's mission, when we first talked about it in August, and how it is evolving, is something that I have never thought possible in August. And the number of people that's coming up. So it's actually a good, I feel good that it is growing and more partners are coming in. And I think if we have been more involved, maybe this will never happen. I mean, I'd be very bad. So I think it's an endorsement that sometimes getting our members to work on their own, using our platform and going ahead is with enough caveats to protect the organization would be the best. And I guess the other point is, if I could say, is that the enthusiasm and the drive to help Philippines is not equal from a group like ARAIBA, from the people who really feel passionate about it. So I think it's a question for us to continue to support and help people with a passion, with a vision to do what they really want to do. In that sense, we are the platform. That is all I can add. Sorry, I may be repeating some things that I said to you previously, but I think this is the balance we have. We have to know what we can do, we can't do. Yes. And I hope one day we can grow so much that we can easily put up a thing, say, yes, I've done this. These guys are good for the following reasons, but their difficulties are this, and accept people. And I think the other part, which I think is important, is that we are learning by doing. If we step back and say, hey, these are the problems and list out the whole lot of things, nobody would do. There is a famous saying of the sailors, the safest place for the ship to be is in the harbor. But the ship is not meant to be in the harbor, it's meant to be the sail. So I just want to say that Sunny should just go ahead with his mission. And as he goes along, there'll be different experiences. I mean, just like when we started ARAIBA, we started ASEAN CSR, there will be delights of joy and there are a lot of disappointments, but those are learning journeys. So we eventually have to learn by doing.
Yep, just to keep going. Thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you very much, Sunny, for your question, and also Yanti. I think but Sunny has always been passionate. That's what I love about him. He's always passionate about something, and he's a doer. So he goes out there, he gets things done. Now we have to move on because there are other questions that I would like to ask of other people. There's one question posted by Chrisanti. Did I get your name right, Chrisanti? If you could unmute yourself and perhaps ask your question. You're on mute at the moment. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, is it okay now? Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. Well, in view of the time constraint, I will be brief and direct. Yanti has started by reminding us that the keywords for partnership is creation, co-risk taking, and mutual benefit. And I think we all endorse that, right? Now, I would like to know in the ASEAN regional context, because in a way, business with different countries are competing with each other. How can this be successfully achieved? You know, in a least painful manner. I suppose Ibu Yanti as well as Pak Thomas perhaps can address this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu Krisanti. Ibu Krisanti is the chair of the Board of Management of Indonesia Business Links. So I'm in a very intense conversations and discussions and everything with her in terms of how we help companies in Indonesia working on this SDGs achievements. And what your question is valid, Ibu Krisanti, that ASEAN comprises of 10 countries, and the extent to which each country actually embrace SDGs, embrace CSR in the past as well, are very, very different. They're very diverse, and there's some of them are more advanced than the other. So likewise, the companies. However, knowing that there are diversity of the companies who are competing in terms of one piece of cake, we look at the similarity. We have the common interest. We should look at the companies that are operating in several countries in ASEAN. That's what we are at ASEAN CSR Network try to convene the companies that are operating in various countries, because by tapping into their assistance in those countries, more or less we have the representatives of each country's view and interest. So that's the way we start building the partnership with those who have the residential base in those countries and start working together. Thomas have the good examples working with Microsoft, with Sam Jarvis and others, who usually are also operating in different countries. And that's how we start the conversation, right, Thomas? Rather than the companies that has no presence in different countries, rather their own base country. Thomas, you want to say something about that?
No, I think you have covered very well. I would just say that one of the difficulties ASEAN has is that there are more trade of ASEAN countries with the rest of the world than among ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I think the challenge for ASEAN economic integration is for us to trade more and compete less and collaborate and work together more. And CSR is one angle that we can all do this. For example, even in CSR, the first country to really move the agenda on this has been the Philippines. In the 1970s, they started with an organization called Philippine Business for Social Progress, and all the companies are supposed to put up 2% of their profits to do that. And the main reason is because the governments were not doing enough on the social dimension. So, and then but then the same idea can become a source for corruption. For example, in Indonesia, the government at one time under Suharto imposed that all the companies in the resource sector, oil, I think should donate something to a charity, and that charity foundation belonged to his family. So people also saw that as corruption. And I think one of the things that which is also linked to Sunny's point earlier, that we're also quite linked to governments. The more efficient the government is, the less the role businesses feel they need on the social sphere. Where governments have failed, businesses think it is in their own interest to solve. So how can we collaborate is a challenge that we have to do. And I think the biggest hindrance for the challenge in ASEAN is the mindset many of them have that we should make profits at all costs, goal at all costs, that this meeting those challenges, but slowly is changing. I think it's slowly changing and changing. It is the COVID is also giving us opportunities to change. And this time, if you look at the pathway, the 225 recommendations the businesses have put to ASEAN leaders, is the businesses that is pushing for more CSR, more collaboration than governments. Governments always say the right things, but sometimes they may not do the right thing.
It's so true.
Sounds familiar.
Yes, thank you very much for adding this perspective, Thomas. It's a very interesting perspective. You're right. I'd like to, there's one other question. So Anna has unfortunately left the meeting, but because we're actually recording this meeting, so I think it will be good, Yanti, if you could answer this question from Anna. So I'll read it. I'll read this question. Okay, firstly, she said, thank you, Yanti, for this interesting presentation. From your experience, perhaps hearing this from companies themselves, what is the gap between motivation to act, assuming there is a motivation, and actual capacity to act? Do you have suggestions on how to fill this gap?
Okay, a very interesting question actually, although it is really real life stories that I often found in many companies that I'm dealing with. You know, in fact, there are some few companies that I'm helping at the moment in terms of bridging that motivation and the actually capacity, building the capacity to work. So I want to, certainly I won't mention any name of that, but it is actually an ASEAN business, a corporation, that they have a great motivation. They have a desire to actually partners with NGOs, with government, with other actors of development. Unfortunately, you know, they have two sort of like gaps that they need to work on at the moment. First is their reputation. The company is rather notorious in terms of what they've done wrong in the past. And because of that past sin, you know, they have been always be sort of like neglected or avoided, you know, by many others, you know. And they have a great challenge on how to actually tackle that. They become demotivated, you know, and they motivated again, talk to us, okay, great, let's do these things. And then they got rejected and they fell back again, you know. So they fell back a few times and then suddenly they realized, and that's what I loved hearing what their confession, that yes, I need to build our capacity. And I said, what kind of capacity? A capacity or skills that actually we need to build partnership. And I said, don't be whispering on me like that, you know, because partnership, there is no such skill that you can learn at the university only. It's a combination between scientific skill, technical skills, and arts of the act. Why I'm saying that, you know, this is like, you know, because maybe I'm a woman, you know, I'm cooking. My cooking, maybe using the same ingredients, you know, I'm cooking the way the recipe said, you know, but why it turns out to be different with my neighbor, for example. Why her cooking is much better than mine, for example. It's not because I don't learn it, maybe I'm going to the same class, you know. So this is an analogy to the partnership itself. I said to them is that, one, it's good that you admitted you need to learn, and because of that, you will listen to what people say about your drawback. So with that, you know, they start doing anything they can to build their capacity. They do training, you know, they seek mentoring, you know, they send people to conferences and things like that. They are in every single Zoom talking about SDGs and partnership. And with that, people start acknowledging the genuine intention of the company. It is not just a lip service. They actually genuinely want to change. And they openly admitted what they've done wrong in the past. And I said, you guys, I'm a bad guy, you know. So I want to change. So once they want to do the change, and I think this is something that ARAIBA can take part of it, is actually helping those that need to change and improve. Because we are not a safe haven for the goodies only, right? We need to learn together and bring up to speed those that are lag behind. So I hope that that satisfies the question.
I think it has really given a good perspective about, you know, not only having the motivation, but stepping out. You need to, you know, it's not only realizing whether you have capacity or not, it's stepping out and then discover your capacity while you're actually doing it instead of just, you know, talking about it, you know.
Yes.
So Yanti, thank you so much. I mean, this has been a very insightful, very inspirational time that you have shared with us. Okay, we really appreciate. And for those people who are, you know, on your what do you call that webinar, you can put a thumbs up. You know, you can put a thumbs up, and you can put a clap, a pause. Okay, to show your appreciation. Okay, for Yanti. And what we are going to be doing very soon is actually to go into a time of a breakout room, a time where we can actually get in a smaller group together and to really chat and get to know each other as well. And for those people who are not yet ARAIBA members, I will encourage you to sign up, join us, and to be on the journey together so that we can help each other. So, I would like to thank Yanti again for being here with us today, and thank you for sharing with us such great knowledge and such insightful knowledge. And I really hope, Yanti, that you'll also join us in our breakout room so you can actually speak to some of the people one-to-one. So with that, thank you. We have officially finished the webinar, and we will see you in the breakout room. And thank you, Yanti, and have a great week ahead. Okay.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
For everything. Thank you.
Okay. Ashok, can you put us into the breakout rooms?
Yes. Now you will see the option to join.
Okay.